Are you thinking about buying a house in Seattle? Well, don't do it before you watch this video. I'm going to share 5 mistakes that I want you to avoid when you're buying a house. It's no good. This is an expensive investment. It's a lot of money, a lot of time goes into finding the right house, and I really want you to be well informed. I'm a real estate agent who has seen the good and the bad. I've been an investor through the good and the bad. I'm going to try to keep you safe by giving you some of my hard-won knowledge in this video. Here we go. So if you've been thinking about buying a home in the Seattle area, I don't know if you're renting here or maybe you're relocating to the area. The focus of my channel is helping people like you who are trying to buy a home, mostly through relocation, but it doesn't matter. If you're living here, that's even better because you already know the area. Now, depending on what's going on in the market, it can be tricky, but Seattle is historically kind of a perennial seller's market, which means it's a hard place to be a buyer. But once you get your foot in the door and you get that property, good things will happen for you. So we're going to get into all of that here. Before we do, I just want to invite you to subscribe to my channel. We release new videos every week, and I would love to help be a part of your journey as you learn exactly what to do on the home buying process, looking at different neighborhoods, kind of evaluating where you want to live and that type of thing. Also, please feel free to comment. I love reading the comments. I'm actually a words of affirmation person. So you can cut me like a knife with an insult, or you can share something that is your experience, even if it's different from what I share. I would love to get your feedback. And of course, if you have any questions or want to know more about the process, you can write those in the YouTube comments. Or even better, for a more immediate response, reach out to me at HomeProAssociates.com, which is my personal website, or you can also call and text. Now, as a local real estate agent here in the Seattle Bellevue market, I have worked with a lot of home buyers over the years, and I really like to kind of break down the process for them in a way that makes sense, takes the fear away. Some people are super gung-ho and they're ready to go and they're ready to make an offer on the first house they see, which is a little bit of a warning sign. And then other people are really nervous, really hesitant. Even when they find the house they want, they just sort of have this emotional flooding where it can feel overwhelming, and it's such big amount of money, and it just can be very painstaking as well, which I completely understand. Wherever you fall in that spectrum, I'm here to help you. You know, this job is part sales, but it's also part like therapist, emotional counselor. And as an investor, I feel that I really have a head for the numbers side and kind of where we're going financially. So I want to make sure that you've got your head on straight, and I want to protect you and keep you safe as you move forward with your first or your next home purchase here in the Seattle area. The first mistake that people tend to make is feeling overwhelmed by the process and trying to do it all themselves. I've fallen into this trap myself sometimes when I am like paging through on some of these portal sites. There's this house and this house and this house I could buy in this neighborhood, that like it kind of starts to be too much after a while. We all are kind of booping and beeping on our phones and gadgets. We're getting information overload. There's too much going on. So one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to start working with their real estate agent, whether that's me or somebody else. Feel free to reach out early in the process. I often start communicating with my clients 9 to 12 months before they are ready to purchase a home, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually a really smart way to go. So we talk about things like the financial investment, what neighborhoods they're interested in, how much they can get for their money here versus there. And it's just a really good exercise to kind of help take this from the big like dream, oh, I want to be a homeowner, I want to buy a house, to, okay, what do I actually need to do to make that happen? So don't stay in this overwhelmed land for too long. If you know that you'd like to buy a house sometime in the next year, I would be pleased to talk with you, whether or not it turns out that we end up working together. I think it's a really great thing to be able to just have some coaching and some clarity on next steps, whether it's how much do I need to save, where does my credit need to be, financial type of stuff, what neighborhood, what kind of house, what's the safety record. location type of stuff, any of those questions, I'm here to help with. So don't stay stuck in overwhelm. If this is something you know what you want to do, reach out. People say, I don't want to waste your time. I don't think of it as wasting my time. I think of it as connecting with people, which is always something that I love to do, and helping people, which again, makes my heart happy, right? The business is just the business that ends up going on as an eventual result of the people that I help and the relationships that I create. So please feel free to reach out at any point in the process. Don't stay stuck in overwhelm. The second thing I see buyers doing is kind of trying to time the market and wondering if now is the right time to buy. Emily, is now the right time to buy? And I always get sucked in. I kind of love these questions because I'm a little bit like that myself. I am not a market timer when it comes to stock, but I've certainly seen over the last 20 years that I've been in real estate, what happens when you buy an investment in a flat market versus what happens if you buy an investment in a climbing or falling market. There's a lot of different dynamics at play. That being said, if you buy smart, you can buy a home successfully and make it a smart investment going forward, no matter what the market is doing. Now, if we could call a bottom, we'd all like to say, prices are at the bottom, let's buy now. But I don't have a crystal ball that's tuned up quite that well. What I can do is share with you statistics about how many days things are on market, what's going on with interest rates, where we see pricing trends going throughout the different times of year. Spring prices tend to go up. Winter, Christmas prices tend to go down. So depending on what's most important to you, we can talk through that information. However, I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to when the market was going up, that said, we started looking 2 years ago and I wish we would have bought then because we could have got a lot more for our money. Or then, prices were going down, but interest rates were going up and people were saying, I wish I had bought 6 months ago. We could have gotten a lot lower interest rate, right? There's always something. There's always something good and there's always something bad. So I don't think it's as important to time the market as it is to understand the market and how that plays into how much you want to pay, how long you're going to be in the house, and how we're going to negotiate with the seller. So there are ways to make good deals in any market. And remember, this is not just an investment, it's also your home. If you're trying to get married and have a family and have kids, you don't necessarily want to put that off for 3 to 4 years, hoping that the market will change or be in a different place. I think it's better to buy a home that you anticipate staying in for at least 5 years, and that should keep you pretty safe as long as you have that good margin of time. But because your lifestyle depends so much on your home and where you live, I don't think you need to just put it off indefinitely. My dad is a real estate investor. He had owned an apartment building when I was born 40 some years ago. They owned it for like 2 years. They sold it because some law changed. They were going to have to put in a sprinkler system and that was going to be expensive. So they just sold it. And ever since then, he's been saying, I can't buy any real estate. The Seattle market's in a bubble. Houses won't cash flow. And he's right. And it's too bad because the market has gone up so much since then. Even if you would have bought something that maybe had a little negative cash flow at the time, it would have appreciated, been paid off, and been worth so much more by now. So don't wait to buy real estate. To buy real estate and wait is a fun cliche that I like to throw around. But seriously, if you want to talk about where we are in the market and the pros and cons of buying at the time that you watch this video, I make monthly updates on that. I'd be happy to share those statistics with you. Number 3, the third mistake that buyers tend to make is looking for the perfect house. And I think this is because real estate agents are guilty of kind of advertising that we'll help you find your dream home. And guess what, honey? You cannot afford your dream home in Seattle, okay? You just can't afford it. I can't afford it. Nobody can afford their dream home. We are all compromising here to live in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Unless you've got upwards of $2 million, chances are you might not feel like you're in your dream home, especially for your first home purchase. Now, when I was in my 20s buying my first home, I really enjoyed gardening, and that was a big hobby of mine. And I really wanted to buy a house with a big, flat, sunny yard where I could plant this vegetable garden that I had in my imagination. I don't think they had Pinterest back then, but they had books. I had seen books of beautiful gardens and I wanted to have one. So I looked with my real estate agent for about 30 different properties, north end, south end, east side, west side, all over the place. And I finally ended up buying the very first home that I had looked at. Thanks, real estate agent, for driving me around town. And I didn't appreciate it until I had seen the rest. And the reason that I didn't love it was because it was a townhouse and it had a very small yard. And so it was not my perfect dream house, but it was affordable. I was able to have a planted, like potted plant garden in the backyard there. And we lived there for 10 years. We bought it at the absolute peak of the market. When the market went down, the market came back up. We sold it at profit, no problem. It was a wonderful home. Both of my kids were born there. I started being a real estate agent while I lived there. It was a great property. But anyway, the point is that sometimes you can't afford your dream home, especially on the first pass. You have to settle or compromise for something that you can afford now. And how it tends to work for people, especially people that you see in those bigger homes, is that they level up into them by when you sell your house, you can get typically a pretty significant amount of equity out of that home. And typically, 5-10 years down the road, when you sell your house, you're earning more money. So that big chunk of equity combined with your higher earning power allows you to kind of flip your way into a bigger, nicer property. And so people can move up. Typically, they'll move up 2 or 3 times before they get into their sort of forever home that they want to settle into long term. And for me, I was fortunate that was only my second home that I live in now in Lake Forest Park. It has a big, sunny, flat area for chickens, and I raised rabbits and bees at one time when I had a little more free time. And a vegetable garden. That's a great way to kind of get into something, even if it's not your first home, that's going to be your forever home. It's a great way to get your foot in the door so that as the market goes up, you're not left behind with no equity to show for it to kind of help you get into that second property. The fourth thing that buyers tend to do that's a mistake when they're buying their home is not bringing their financing into the picture soon enough. So a lot of us will look at a mortgage calculator online and kind of run some numbers and get an idea for what the housing payment is likely to be. But what I find is that there's nothing to replace actually speaking with a real person and getting pre-approved to make it feel like real, because you know exactly how much you need for a down payment, how much you need for closing costs, and what kind of monthly payments you're going to be looking at. And typically they can even run numbers. Like if you bought a home for $700,000, your payment would be this. If you bought a home for $800,000, your payment would be that. And it makes it much more tangible because it takes it from an abstract, like I think this is how much I can afford, to an actual, this is how much you can pay. I have seen it time and time again where people, I said I work, 9 to 12 months oftentimes with people before they're ready to buy. Typically it's when they go to the lender and get pre-approved that now it's game on. It's just something about doing that flips the switch and makes people feel like they're ready to go. So if you've been in this overwhelmed state, or you kind of know you want to, but you're not sure you can afford it, let's get you in to see a lender. I have a lot of different folks that I work with. I can give you some names if you need a reference or a referral. I would love to do that. I don't get any kickbacks, but I like to work with lenders who know what they're doing and can get the property closed, even if a problem or a challenge comes up. Plus, small local lenders tend to have a better reputation with other real estate agents. A lot of realtors here, because it's such a seller's market, they don't like dealing with the big banks, like the place where you have your free checking account, like I do. I have 2 free checking accounts with 2 different banks, and that is not who I get mortgages with. So just to say, you want to work with someone who's very responsive and not someone that's on an 800 number in Iowa that doesn't know how to process your income. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so talking with a lender, and also a lot of people have the false assumption that they need to have a certain credit score, or the false assumption that they need to put 20% down or something like that. I had a client who bought a $400,000 townhouse on her own after a life of being a tenant, and she was able to do it with 0 money down. I think she got a $5,000 gift from her mother-in-law. She used a the Washington State first-time homebuyer program that supplemented her down payment requirements, and she got the seller to pay $5,000 toward her closing costs. So she really was able to wipe out her out-of-pocket needs to get into a property. So if you feel like you're saving money and saving money and saving money, and meanwhile the properties are getting more and more and more expensive, sometimes it just feels like the properties are running away from you faster than you can save toward that down payment. So let's have a realistic conversation with a lender, and they'll run some numbers for you. They'll help you understand interest rates. Maybe you can buy down the interest rate, or have even the seller buy down the interest rate so that your monthly payment can be lower. We'll talk about PMI, private mortgage insurance, and how we can get rid of that on your property, oftentimes within just a couple of years of your purchase, which will lower your monthly payment then. And then we can also talk about down payment and how much you really need. Somewhat of it depends on how much you can qualify for, and some of it depends on how competitive the market is. When the market is super white hot and everything is selling in a hot minute, then if you're coming in with a zero down loan program, you might not look as competitive as somebody who's coming in all cash or 20% down or something like that. So getting in front of a lender, sharing your story, getting your team together, getting your advisors on board is a big theme of mine, because I think, like I said, we tend to want to do it all of ourselves, and it's all on the internet, I can figure this out. But oftentimes figuring it out and piecing it together is not as effective as working with a rock star team who knows how to get the job done and will help bring you from here to there more quickly and easily than you ever thought possible. So mistake number 5 that I want you to avoid as a buyer is not understanding where we are in the market cycle, whether or not there's a balance of a seller's market or a buyer's market, where it's shifting to from compared to where it was, what's going on with negotiating power. All of these things can really impact your options as a buyer. For example, when interest rates were really low during COVID, we had a huge spike in buyer interest, and buyers couldn't negotiate on anything. They had to void inspections. They had to put huge non-refundable earnest money deposits down. They had to close in 10 days. They had to do all sorts of crazy things. There were even jokes like, I'll name my firstborn child after you. I will donate my left kidney to you if you ever need it. There were all of these crazy things going on because it was a really strongly pro-sellers market at that point. There were a lot of buyers interested in every home for sale, and so they really had to kind of outdo each other to get a property. Then in late 2022, you may remember the interest rates started getting cranked up really fast because the Fed was trying to get inflation under control. So like turning off the spigot, homes suddenly became much less affordable, and these buyers kind of went away. And so now the people are saying, hey, who wants to buy my house? Does anybody want to buy my house? And the one buyer would say, maybe if you drop the price, maybe if you pay points to reduce my interest rate, maybe if I negotiate you down and pay less than your asking price. And so because there were no longer a healthy activity of buyers, there were just a few, the buyers suddenly found themselves having a lot more control in the marketplace. I remember during this time, I had a house that I had listed, and we listed it a little higher than I recommended, but we had it listed. We got 2 offers. We went under contract with one, and they fell out of contract the next day. We went out of contract with another one, and then they tried to renegotiate with us to get $20,000 knocked off the price for no reason. So we told them to go away, and then we finally had a third buyer who I think bought it less than those other people. But even just in the couple weeks we were on the market, we could see the offers were getting lower and lower the longer that we waited. So it was a really interesting, very fast shift in the market. So that went on all through like the summer. The summer is typically slow here, and that's another thing, right? Seasonal changes. The summer is slow. The autumn is a bump in activity. We get a lot more activity in the autumn, and then like winter, Christmas time is slow. And now it's January, and we are seeing like low inventory, not very many houses, and all of the buyers, here they come again. Oh, we're used to the higher interest rates. Like, oh, it's come down a little bit. We feel comfortable again. And so now when a home comes on the market, it's starting to get gobbled up. I haven't seen these big bidding wars where it was like when interest rates were at 2%, but we've certainly seen a lot more activity. And so there's just a lot of dynamics at play here. Average days on market, how much inventory, which means how much houses for sale, the change in median price points, the interest rates, all of these different things come into play. And it's important for you as a buyer to work with your real estate agent to understand that, because that can mean the difference between seeing a house for sale and knowing that you have to pay $500,000 more in order to purchase it, or seeing a house for sale and knowing that you can get it for $50,000 less than it's asking, whether or not you can negotiate aggressively on your inspection, whether or not the seller is going to pay for things like closing costs and interest rate buy downs. So there's just a lot of negotiating that has to do with this market data. And you won't know that just by looking at homes on a portal site. You won't know if that house that's listed for $700,000 is going to sell for $700,000 or significantly more or significantly less. So when you're talking with your real estate agent, understanding where you are in the market cycle and how this relates to your ability to negotiate is a really important part of the process. So thanks so much for joining me. This is 5 buyer mistakes. I hope you feel better educated and can avoid those mistakes. Being a buyer is a complicated process. And as a real estate agent, I actually also homeschooled my kids. I really enjoy teaching. I really want for you to understand things. That's very like part of my DNA is to help you make a good decision by educating you in a simple, digestible way so that you feel confident and comfortable and you feel like you're in charge. I'm here to advise you. I'll coach you. I'm putting the guardrails up, but I want you to feel like an owner in the process and that you're vested and that you're excited and enthusiastic. Those are my favorite types of buyers to work with. So if you have any questions, if you would like any guidance on how to get started as a buyer in the Seattle or Bellevue area, please feel free to reach out and give me a call or text me. You can also visit me online at HomeProAssociates.com. This is Emily Cressey. I'm so glad that you were here today. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and also let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. If you subscribe, you won't miss a thing, including our next video that's coming out next week. Until then, I hope you watch these other videos, which I have prepared just for you, and I will see you on the next one.